key to understanding how to improve your code and your site's performance is understanding render blocking resources. By default, CSS is treated as a render blocking resource. But what do I mean by render blocking? What does that mean? Well, very simplistically, it just means that the browser won't render, won't process any content until the CSS OM is constructed. It almost means that the entire process is put on hold until the CSS OM has been fully constructed, that the CSS style sheets have been read through by the browser and a whole tree has been constructed on the back of that. Until that's done, everything else is put on pause. Because of this, you should always just make sure you keep your CSS lean and deliver it as quickly as possible to the browser. So that's why we use media types and queries to unblock rendering. In the previous sections, we saw that in the construction of the render tree, that the critical rendering path requires both the DOM and the CSS OM to construct the render tree. Remember, it requires these two things. And this has one very important implication, and that is, drumroll, both HTML and CSS are render blocking resources. It may seem obvious that HTML is render blocking because without the DOM there'll be nothing to display. But it might not be that obvious in relation to the CSS. Okay, but what does this all mean? Well, let's look at the case first if CSS is not render blocking. So let's just say that the browser takes your content, your HTML file, and it displays it on the screen very quickly, and it doesn't even wait for the CSS to load. Well, this is what the site's going to look like. It's going to look terrible. Yucky. Which is why it's good to actually have render blocking resources. Sometimes you want it as a developer, right? You want to have a nice site that's displayed to your users, full of content and the CSS all done. Cool, that was a very high level summary of what a render blocking resource is. But now let's dive into this further. And just in case you're wondering, how do we actually see a website that doesn't have any CSS? Well, turns out it is super simple. Let's have a look. Let's just go to some random website. I don't know. Let's just go, there we go, Stack Overflow. So here we are on Stack Overflow. What if CSS wasn't render blocking? What would this look like? Well, you can quickly just go to the dev tools. So we can inspect this page. And usually the CSS is always kept within the head section. I'll zoom in there for you so you can see. Usually the CSS is within this head section. And if we open this up here, we can see here the link href tags. Yes, this isn't really CSS, but if we keep scrolling down, we should be able to find CSS somewhere. And there we go. We've got type text/CSS. So the point I'm trying to make is that if we delete this entire head tag, there we go. We get rid of all the CSS, and that's why it looks a complete mess. Yeah. But there you go. Just in case you're wondering how I actually did that, now you know.